And joining us now to address the legalities is Alexis Rosenberg with Rosenberg Law PA. Thank you for joining us, Alexis. All right, the one juror is, well, we're learning that this juror actually was a victim of domestic violence and possibly engaged in domestic violence herself. Is this a big deal for this?
Yeah, and as well as I believe that it's come out that her son also was charged with domestic violence of his pregnant wife, which she had knowledge of as well. So this is a huge deal because this case, a lot of the defense surrounded allegations that she was scared and she was a victim of domestic violence. So during jury selection, I haven't seen the questions, but I am sure they would have asked, you know, do you know someone was a victim of domestic violence? Have you been a victim of domestic violence as part of the jury selection questions?
All right. Have you ever seen something like this in the past cause a new trial?
So there is a a test that has to be met to have a new trial based on what, you know, a juror during jury selection not being as truthful. And it has to be that they weren't truthful about something. It basically has to be important or related to the actual case, like we have in this case, and that the other side in this case, that the defense is saying, you know, did what's called their due diligence. And, you know, there's a good argument to be made that by having these questions about domestic violence as part of those jury selection questions, that due diligence. Now, of course, the prosecution is going to argue that they needed to do more than simply ask those, and so it could have been caught earlier on.
I imagine this juror could face some legal issues as well as a result of this.
So jurors are actually sworn in, they're under oath. So yes, answering those questions and not being truthful, you could be charged with perjury.
All right, and how does this work for Ashley Benefield's case? Is this good for her if she gets a new trial, or will it just start over?
Well, that is a really good question because, as we know, she ultimately was convicted of manslaughter, which was the lesser of the two charges. So, you know, that's up for opinion. I mean, it seems that her attorneys think that if she gets a new trial and there weren't these things that went wrong, that very possibly she could maybe be found not guilty. But what's interesting is because the juror we're talking about, it was that there was allegations that they had also committed domestic violence as well as they had been subjected to it. So, I mean, that's a toss-up because you would think that somebody who had been a victim of domestic violence might be more sympathetic to her.
Right. Okay, so what do you think will happen next? The judge has to make a decision. So either the judge will move on with sentencing as is and not let this make a change, or we'll see a new trial. What could happen?
So there is the motion for a new trial. So he's going to make a determination as to whether he's going to grant a new trial or not. Now, let's say hypothetically that he denies that and then he sentences her. They have a right to still appeal that. So it could be that an appellate court looks at it and says, no, you know, that he really, you know, this was prejudicial and she should be granted a new trial. So this isn't necessarily going to be over any means, you know, very soon.
Do you feel like this is a big enough deal to grant a new trial?
I think it's something to be considered. I mean, because it's domestic violence and this whole case was really surrounding domestic violence. If we had a situation or a case that we had that there wasn't an allegation related to domestic violence, then I would say no. I would say that there wasn't any basis for a new trial based on that.
But because she was found guilty, yeah, and being a victim herself, so, or claimed, right,
yeah.
Right, okay. Alexis Rosenberg with Rosenberg Law, we thank you for joining us today.